Hey everybody, this is Singles Match. I haven't done one of these yet. I attempted to do one time. The podcasting gods would not allow it, but this felt like the opportunity, the time to do one finally. It's just me. There's no Ryan. If I didn't do it by myself, there was probably going to be a very long, drawn-out conversation between Ryan and I whenever he and I get together. I've been trying to do it. Been trying to organize some time with him, but he's a hard guy. Even broke shoulder and all. Hard guy to pin down. You'd be shocked. But nonetheless, I'm here. Singles match. As you can probably see from the title, I'm sure I'll title it something to this effect, but I wanted to talk about Hulk Hogan, which seems like the news has been making the rounds. In case anyone was not aware at the time of this listening, he passed away today on July 24th. This will probably be posted on the 25th, but he passed away today on the 24th. This morning is when the news broke. So, I mean, again, I'm sure if you've been listening for a while, you're already aware to some degree of my history with Hulk Hogan. But just to kind of, I guess, take a step back, Hulk Hogan was the guy that got me into wrestling. As I'm sure a lot of 80s babies would probably say the same. Anyone who was a big wrestling fan in the 80s was more than likely a big Hulk Hogan fan. But I just wanted to kind of get my thoughts out. We'll see. This may not even make air. I don't even know. I have no notes. I'm just sort of winging it based on the things that I've been thinking about. I don't even have a mic stand right now. I'm holding the microphone like a stand-up comedian. I am not standing up, though. I am seated in case I get real heated. But I guess as far as the chronology of today, I did a little bit of work. I came upstairs to see the wife and the baby and hang out with the baby in a little bit, and I checked my phone, and less than 10 minutes after it was announced is when I saw it. So I think that the post on Reddit that I saw to let me know that he had passed was 8 minutes old. So pretty fresh. And honestly, I am glad that that's how I found out, because over the course of the day, it honestly did feel very much like a birthday level of texts, in that I was hearing from people that I haven't heard from in like a year, 2 years or more. Like, I would assume that they were kind of jokingly expressing condolences, but like a lot of messages over the course of the day. And like some of the messages, I'm glad that's not how I actually found out about it, because like in that moment, I had Evelyn on my lap. I'm on the couch. I'm looking at my phone, and like the only thing I can compare it to is just sort of a family member that maybe you've gotten a little distant from. And so there's just sort of a numbness there. And obviously, like, I did meet Hulk Hogan once. we were not friends, but it's just such a strong tie to my childhood that when you find out that this hero that you had grown up with is no longer with us, it was jarring. Hulk in a lot of ways was like a G.I. Joe or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Barbie. Like, you don't think of those things as like dying. You don't expect to wake up and like the Ninja Turtles had a stroke. But like that's kind of how it felt, even though he was, a human being of flesh and blood. But yeah, it was just very jarring, sort of numb. Didn't really know how to react. I know, and this had also come up over the course of my conversations with people, but I'd always kind of given a little bit of thought in the background of my mind at various points. Like when the day comes that Hulk Hogan dies, do I take that day off of work? And like, I never came to a solid conclusion. I never knew for sure. But I did not take the day off. I continued to work. I wasn't like sobbing in tears. There was one point, full disclosure, there was one point where I was reading Where the Wild Things Are to my daughter. And because to that point, I was just thinking about my fandom of Hulk, just watching his matches and kind of growing up and stuff like that. And then in the middle of reading Where the Wild Things Are, I remembered meeting him and like how great of an experience that was. And I've met a few wrestlers, and a lot of them have been actually really, really good. There's some that have just been kind of like, oh, well, okay. I could have missed out on that. No, I wouldn't have missed out on anything. But like meeting Hulk Hogan was great. For as like big of a star as he was, whatever. He was very gracious. He took the time to like chat with everybody. Like you really felt like you got an experience. And so that popped into my brain for whatever reason. I don't know why. As I was reading the book, and I was having difficulty like getting noises out. Well, so I'm like trying to read the book and tell Evelyn about Max, and they gnarred their terrible teeth and roared their terrible roars, and like I can barely talk for a good 2 minutes, maybe minute and a half to 2 minutes. So that was his worst. That was the worst that it got. And who knows? I'll probably, before I turn in for the night, I'll probably watch a Hulk Hogan match from the glory days from my youth. We'll see how that goes. But finding out about it, I found out on Reddit, as mentioned. My immediate instinct was to just see like, okay, well, let's see what people are saying. What's the scuttlebutt on the street about this Hulk Hogan chap? And it wasn't good. It was I think I've made it pretty clear over the course of the near 100 episodes, or if you count Rumpus time, well above that, whatever. But I've made it pretty clear that like I have complex emotions about Hulk Hogan these days. But in that moment, you're kind of just hoping to find some solidarity, and like maybe there's other people just kind of telling their memories of growing up and like what the thing is that kind of got them into wrestling or made them a fan of Hulk Hogan specifically, whatever. Like you kind of are hoping for that, and that's not what I got at all. There was definitely a significant number of people, like very early on when the news first broke, in wrestling circles, mind you, people who were just celebratory of his death. And so that's their right, but it just wasn't what I was looking for in that moment. And so I, after kind of browsing through a little bit, I was like, this isn't good. I don't want to see any of this. I'm just going to gracefully bow out. And then over the course of the day, I'd kind of periodically keep checking. And it did seem like over the day, the conversation got a lot more measured, which was more palatable to me. And so I did hear Mick Foley, friend of the show, Mick Foley. I heard him talk a little bit about kind of his opinion on Hulk's legacy and stuff like that. And that kind of put things into more perspective for me. And really, I mean, I guess it kind of solidified what I was already leaning towards in my mind. But I think, everybody's mileage may vary depending on how you view the last 10 to 15 years of Hulk's life. I've always been kind of the mind that, like, obviously it's horrible, the things that he said. And in fact, I didn't even realize there was one thing that somebody said. Somebody posted, a wrestling journalist, that I didn't even know about. Like, I know I'm going to be very meandering on this. I apologize in advance. But I think everyone knows about the main thing where, there was these sex tapes. He was in a consensual, I don't even know if you call it polygamous, because it was basically his friend's wife, and his friend was just saying, yeah, you could have sex with my wife. And his wife was like, yeah, have sex with me. And then they would have sex. Is that polygamous? I don't know. But it was an agreed upon situation. Nobody was being taken advantage of. Well, except for the fact that Hulk was being recorded during all of it. But that aside, and then of course there was the videotape during these sex tapes where he used the N-word and was very clearly in a dark, depressed place. But I also found out there was a different incident where after his son had gotten in a car accident and I don't know if the friend that was in the car with his son was paralyzed or like in a coma. It was very serious either way. But I guess Hulk at some point had said like he was afraid that due to this incident that his family, Hulk Hogan's family, would be resurrected as black people, and he was like terrified about that. I haven't looked into that. I saw a reference to it, and I was like, that's really crazy. That's an incredibly weird fear to have. But be that as it may, depending on how strongly you feel about those events of the past 10 to 15 years, again, it may color your opinion differently. But I think with all the stuff that he did with Make-A-Wish, and you don't hear about Hulk Hogan's Make-A-Wish stuff in the same vein as you do John Cena. I don't know why, whatever. It's not, that's a different conversation for a different day. But like he was always so great with kids. And like that's the thing that you always hear about Hulk Hogan from that era of guys. It's like, yeah, he was a politician and blah, blah, blah. Like you either hear he made everybody a ton of money that was working on the wrestling cards with him, or you hear he was a politician, he kept everybody down, blah, 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 blah. But like, of all those camps, of all those different people that interacted with Hulk, like the one constant is like, oh yeah, he was always super giving when it came to his time with kids. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to reconcile all of these things, but I guess that's, you don't have to reconcile, I guess is the thing. Like you can sort of mourn your experience, your feelings about someone or something or whatever, and kind of also recognize like they weren't perfect, and in fact in a lot of cases they were very far from perfect. But I guess the thing that I'm the most emotional that I am is just sort of like it was a very large piece of my childhood that is gone now, not in a just in a physical sense, I suppose. But, I can't say that Hulk Hogan was making a lot of lasting memories that I'm going to cherish over the past 15 to 20 years or so. I think the Hulk Hogan that I will remember going on into my life is probably going to be that, 1980s, early 1990s Hulk Hogan. And then maybe occasionally I'll think of the NWO version. But, yeah, that's probably the Hulk that I'm going to carry along in my heart moving forward in terms of how I will be remembering him. But yeah, it's interesting. I was already planning, and like you can think I'm a liar. It's totally fine to think that I'm making this up. But I was actually planning the very next episode of both Rumpus Time and the wrestling to be like a very Hulk Hogan-centric thing in a way, and not, I don't think it'd be invasive. I think for anyone who's listening to this that is, not a huge wrestling fan, I think that you would still enjoy it. I think anyway, but like it was going to be Hulk Hogan focused in a way that I hadn't really done in a Rumpus Time before. And so it's odd. It's a little eerie that this happened as I'm trying to kind of actively get Ryan over and like, this is going to be the next thing we do. But I mean, we'll keep it as it is, but the tone, admittedly, I don't know, it might be a little bit different. I'm not quite sure, but, yeah, I guess that's kind of my experience of the day, just to kind of set the stage as far as, and put it out there, because I've talked about these things on the podcast before, but just so kind of there's a very clear record of it, and as far as my fandom of Hulk Hogan and like why there's a connection, a strong connection, why that is. But you have your interests as a kid, your Ninja Turtles, your He-Mans, etc. And like one of them was Hulk Hogan. And in my mind, for the longest time, when we first started this program, as a matter of fact, I thought that I first became a wrestling fan, a Hulk Hogan fan, in like 1990 when I was 6 years old. That's what I always was operating under the impression of, because that's like my earliest wrestling memory is the WWF magazine with Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior on the cover. They're in the mountains of Canada, shirtless, and they're posing against one another. They both have their titles. WrestleMania 6 is happening. Be there. That type of thing. So that's my first memory of professional wrestling. And like, I remember being obsessed with just the visual of that, of the two titans facing off on a mountaintop. It was just something about it was like incredible to me as a kid. But recently, over the past year or two, my grandma gave me some old like home videos that my grandpa had shot back in like the late 80s and early 90s and stuff, mainly late 80s. And there was a Christmas, it was either Christmas 86 or Christmas 87. I want to say it was 86 because I remember being shocked by this. But I remember that he was taping me and I was running around and I had a Hulk Hogan action figure, like the very first Hulk Hogan action figure that they ever made, like the big one. The limbs didn't move. It was just him with his arms up, whatever. But I'm like holding around and I'm like 3 years old. And I have no memory of that, but like clearly, and it could have just been somebody's like, oh, this seems like a popular toy, we'll get it for him. But like, I think I was a wrestling fan at 3, which is, I mean, I'm nearly 43. Well, I'm nearly 42, let's be honest. But be that as it may, I'm rapidly approaching 40 years of wrestling fandom. And so Hulk Hogan was my guy. Absolutely. I loved Roddy Piper. I loved Bret Hart. I loved Mr. Perfect. But like, they were all in a secondary tier below Hulk Hogan. So, you know, that's what was kind of my gateway into the wrestling fandom. I had the Hulk Hogan shirt. There's a picture, maybe I'll post it on our Instagram or at some point, of me with the whole garb. I was all hulked out at like 7, 8 years old, something like that. And you know, when Hulk Hogan left the WWF in '93, my interest in wrestling kind of went away. Like, I stopped watching wrestling for a good couple of years. And like, there were guys, again, like Bret Hart and whatnot, that I really did like. But I think it was a combination of just Hulk's not there anymore. The product is kind of like, basketball was becoming a lot more interesting to me around this time. And so I just kind of took a little bit of a break without like meaning to. And then, of course, there's like two things. And again, I know I've told this before on the podcast, but just for the sake of posterity, the two things that got me back into wrestling: one, I heard Hulk Hogan was a bad guy now, and so like I had to know what that looked like. So that was like the first thing. And the second thing was those sexy WWF ladies, Sunny, who, I mean, arguably Sunny, probably more problematic than Hulk Hogan. I mean, there's probably a time and a place for that discussion to be had. It may not be today, right now, but you could make that argument. Look into it. She's got quite the rap sheet. I'm pretty sure she killed somebody in a vehicular situation while under the influence. Which, again, I'm not here to tell you which thing's worse. I'm just saying arguments could be made. But yeah, those are the two things with those raging hormones. Those are the two things that got me back into wrestling, and I really haven't stopped since that point. So right around 96, after a 3-year, it was mainly a 3-year hiatus, to be fair. There were a couple of things like the Undertaker versus Undertaker match that I remember watching, like it was as if it was blurry scrambled porn, but it was blurry scrambled wrestling, which is a really cool thing to talk about. But I remember watching, yes, the blurry Undertaker versus Undertaker match. Outside of that, though, there wasn't a whole lot that was capturing my attention during that point. But yeah, like, so, you know, my fandom is so tied in to Hulk Hogan. Like, if there was not a Hulk Hogan around during that time frame, like, would I have become a wrestling fan still? I don't know. Like, it's interesting to, like, I probably would have needed to fill my time with something else equally as inconsequential. What that would have been, I don't know. But it's fun. It's a fun thought exercise, I suppose. But I'm just, you know, I don't want to extend this unnecessarily. There's a lot of things that were kind of running through my brain that I was like, I have to get this out of me in some form or fashion. And, you know, my Heather's not going to listen to me talk about this. I've dabbled a little bit. I've given her as much as I need to. And, you know, we talked about it as for maybe a grand total of 5 minutes, but I needed more. I needed a little bit more to get out. But yeah, just some of the stuff I've read online is just infuriating to me. Like, even actually just a week ago, not pre Hulk Hogan death, on some wrestling subreddit, not the big one of the other ones, somebody put out who's the Mount Rushmore of the worst people ever in wrestling. And, you know, Vince McMahon was on there. It was just like, okay, sure, fine. I guess so. And then I think Hulk was second. And it's like, oh, man. I get that he did bad shit and that, like, clearly you can point to his activities. And hold on. Let me put a pin in my... I almost interrupted myself. The spirit of Ryan is running through me. But I just saw that. It's like, dude, there's for sure at least 4 people that have murdered human beings. Like, you understand that people have murdered people in wrestling. Like, there are wrestling murderers that have existed throughout the history of wrestling, and you're still saying, no, Hulk Hogan was worse than the wrestling murder. Chris Benoit was not on their worst people in wrestling Mount Rushmore. The guy that killed his own wife and son is apparently not as bad as Hulk Hogan, according to this idiot online. I shouldn't get wrapped up about it. You know, I shouldn't really take it that seriously because, you know, people have always had a really interesting feeling about Hulk Hogan. I have a conspiracy theory. This is as good of a time to get into the conspiracy theories any other time, I imagine. There's probably some people out there who were going to react this venomously towards Hulk Hogan's death for the past 20, 30, 40 years, regardless of what he did. Some people just fixate on he's a bad wrestler, and so then, and like, that's fine. But then when he actually did do bad shit, they could point to the bad shit and be like, that's why I hate him. When in reality, they actually hate him because, oh, his leg drop sucks. Like, whatever. Like, but this is all like a big cover, not for everybody and not even for the majority, but some of people are out there who are like, oh, Hulk Hogan sucks. And so I'm so glad he's racist. So now I can say that he sucks and like people will agree with me. I don't know. So I'm probably going to watch Survivor Series 90. That was my first pay-per-view. It's not the thing I would probably show like a brand new wrestling fan, but it's my comfort food. It's like it's the closest thing to like a wrestling bowl of Kraft macaroni and cheese I can think of. So that's probably what I'm going to go and do. I may post a picture or two on the Hard Mark Instagram over the next day or two, just with I don't know, a couple Hulk things. We'll see. But I appreciate everybody listening to the singles match. I hope I didn't meander in too many different ways. I hope this got my feelings across about the complex nature of my love of Hulk Hogan. And I'm hoping to get a proper new episode out in the near future. Orion, as mentioned, a difficult boy to hold on to these days. He's difficult to wrangle down, but let's see if I can break his other shoulder and maybe that'll settle him a little bit more. But thanks very much, everybody. You'll hear from me again soon. Take it sleazy.